Important notice: the following content may be triggering. Viewer discretion is advised. All discussions are based on personal opinions and experiences. If you or someone you know needs help, please reach out to a local support organization. Important notice: the following content may be triggering.
All right. Well, welcome. We are so glad to have so many people here today through the eyes of survivors uncensored. So we would just want to welcome you. This is a podcast where we tackle the hottest and most controversial topics, and today is definitely going to be controversial. So we're going to do it unfiltered and unafraid. I'm your host, Tara Woodley, and I'm joined by my powerhouse co-host, Amanda and Mia, here at Break the Silence, as we break down stories that everyone is definitely talking about here lately. So tonight, we're diving into three major headlines. First, we're going to talk about Casey Anthony's attempt to rebrand herself as an advocate while trying to silence critics with cease and desist letters. We'll discuss the backlash, why survivors are calling it out. We'll also talk about Oklahoma's stalking bill debate. There is conversation about repealing the warning letter requirement as a step forward or as a dangerous misstep. And we'll break down what the law actually does and its impact on survivors and the unintended consequences that bill has had. And also, we're going to discuss the return of Ruby Franke into the headlines with the shocking new documentary exposing the dark reality behind her family's abuse and how it's reigniting discussions on the dangers of like family vlogging. So we're live across all social media platforms. We're on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. Also, make sure you follow us on TikTok at Break the Silence or BTSADV to keep up with the conversation and get content there. We also want to do a huge shout out to our affiliate sponsor, Opus Clip. If you've looked across our content and seen clips of our various episodes of Through the Eyes of Survivors, we create that through Opus Clip. And if you're a creator, let me tell you, that has been an absolute game changer. So in the scrolling bar below, you can pick up the code, which you just go to www.opus.pro/via equal BTS ADV 25. I know you might not all get that all at once, but it is on the screen for you. So buckle up. This is Through the Eyes of Survivors Uncensored, where the truth isn't sugar-coated and silence is never an option. So let's get into it, ladies. Let her rip. Let's talk about Casey Anthony. So who wants to do the breakdown of that case? Because I know the case happened long enough that there are a lot of the younger generation who know nothing about what happened in that case. You want me to go into it, Amanda, or you want to?
You could go in, Tara, for sure. Absolutely.
Well, this one is a hot button for me. So the Casey Anthony case, I remember very well because as a mother, it was gut-wrenching. So Casey Anthony, she's one of the most infamous criminal trials ever in U.S. history, kind of like up there with OJ, right? It centered around the disappearance of Kaylee, who was 2 years old, and her mother was acquitted on her murder case. Now, she was convicted on statutes of like basically lying to the police and hindering the police's investigation. But she was acquitted for the death of her daughter. Um, and here lately, she is trying to rebrand herself on TikTok as an advocate for women and children. And it has people unhinged over in TikTok. So, have you seen any of that over there, Mia?
Oh, I've seen like clips of, I do not know the name of the news reporter, but this news reporter was very open about her dislike for Casey Anthony. So I keep seeing clips of that. And I've seen like videos on TikTok that are like, how is Casey Anthony going to advocate for survivors when she murdered her child? So,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, everybody's opinion, and of course we're gonna say it's opinion because she was acquitted, but a lot of people feel like she got away uh, with her daughter's death, similar to like how OJ got away with it. As far as people's opinions, it's very polarizing. So, do you remember some of that case, Amanda? How when you when it was
I
out?
do. I do. I do. So I was actually, I want to say I was 20 years old. And I remember just seeing different news news clips about it. And the funny part to me is this was a year before I had my daughter, my firstborn. And when I heard that she did not report for 30 days and was out partying, I couldn't even imagine, not even being a mother at that time, how someone could be that's detached from
Yeah.
an incident. Like I couldn't. I had nieces and nephews at that. I mean, I still do, but at that time, the only thing that was close to me was my nieces and nephews that were young. And if it was them, I couldn't sleep at night at that time. I thought to myself, so for even to be your daughter, and you're like, it. That was what really took me back into this day. I can remember was just we're completely taken back with her responses to what was going on. It was odd to me. And now sitting around as a mother, it's a whole other it's a
Mhm.
whole other kind of not understanding. So
Oh
yeah.
yeah, and we'd love to interact with you if you're watching. So please enter some comments in. Tell us if you think she got away with it. Audrey says she got away with it, and I tell you, the most horrendous thing to me about the whole thing was she didn't even report her daughter missing. 30 days, her daughter is missing, and it's her mother who reports that child missing, not her.
Mhm.
She was out partying and carrying on, entered a hot body contest, doing like wet t-shirt stuff and showing everything out there. And what was it? She got a tattoo, Amanda?
She got a tattoo, and what was the oddest thing was what her tattoo said. It was Bella Vita. Beautiful life. Your child's missing. Your life is beautiful. That's what you're gonna get tattooed on you during that time.
Yeah, and her parents,
Um,
yeah, she lived with her parents, but she had a boyfriend who she went and saw a lot with her friends, and she's carrying that baby
mhm.
back and forth. And she kept telling both parties when they were asking, friends versus her family, that she was leaving that baby with Zanny the nanny. That still kills me to this day. Zanny the
Oh
nanny.
my gosh, they are the nanny. In pretense, that's not a real nanny. That's a substance
Oh
that
yeah, it
they
was
believe
code.
she
It's
was
code for
referring.
Xanax. It is. It's code for Xanax. It was back then a code for Xanax. I can't even believe she was that
Mhm.
kind of like ignorant to
Just loose
even
with her.
use that.
Yeah, like use that word. Yeah, I to and the thing that again that was just really odd to me was that she claimed, first off, when people would question her about the 30 days, her response is always, well, my father told me, that I just needed to wait. She would show up, and that she would give me all this, and she claims that that's what she was just. She was just waiting. She was just like, she thought she was truly alive, and she was told to just wait. Um, I don't care who tells me anything. If I can't find my child, I'm not going to wait. I'm going to look. And even if there is a wait time, I sure as heck would not be able to comprehend going out and partying and getting tattoos and what was odd to me, Tara, was the initial call that they reported Kaylee missing didn't start off about her being missing. It was about a theft of an auto. Her mother called the police department asking, I want to bring someone into the police department. And it was Casey. She was claiming that she stole her vehicle.
Mhm.
And then you hear her fighting, and she says, I'm also going after that baby. I'm going to get that baby. And then that's kind of what led into the missing person
Mhm.
report. So it started off very odd.
Well, she dumped the car.
It was not normal.
The car that was in
Mhm.
her parents' name. She dumped the car at a gas station, at a convenience store, and left it there for weeks on end. And they had it towed.
Mhm.
And then they call going, her father, because it's registered in his name, go, hey, you need to get this car out of the impound. And that's when her father claimed that the car smelled like a dead body, and he's an ex-cop. So he would know what a dead body would smell like, I would think, being an ex-detective. And that's when they started pressuring Casey as to where was that baby? Where's that baby? So I don't know. Mia, just your opinion. I mean, if you had a friend who was acting like that, what would your thoughts be?
I wouldn't be friends with someone like that because that's crazy. Like
Mhm,
one time I can't even fathom losing my child and reacting like that. I have
mhm.
a rabbit, and one time I couldn't find her under her cage, in her cage, because she crawled under it, and I was losing my mind. I
Yes.
was crying. I was like, my bunny's gone. The
Yeah.
fact she could oh, I'm gonna go party. I could not function. There's no way.
Oh,
It
no.
actually doesn't make any sense. Even
No.
It's not normal.
no, and I've also seen clips of her trying to point to her father's an abuser and that he's guilty, and apparently he was saying that Casey needs to forgive him, or he wants her to yeah, and she's like, "Oh, he's admitting to something." Like this man probably feels horrible that he just raised such a horrible daughter and that he couldn't save his granddaughter's life. But
Yeah.
she's trying to make it seem like she's a victim, which is
Mhm.
it's offensive to actually to survivors, that there's millions and millions of survivors that don't go and kill their children.
Yes. Yes,
So,
that's part of my point because I've seen lots of people on there pointing to her parents going, oh, well, that was a narcissistic relationship with her parents. And it's obvious from the video footage that Casey's, you know, got a bit of that going on, in my opinion, herself, but because she's all about her.
Yeah.
And, but the thing is that how many of us survive narcissists, but we don't go and kill our children, right? We don't go and just abandon our children.
No.
That's not normal. No,
No.
no. So, and I do feel bad for her family because it some of the stuff. I mean, they have all the everything's out. Her calls from in the jail cell to
Oh,
her family, which how she treated them was so horrendous.
oh my gosh. That one jail call where she was like, I don't effing know where. I mean, she was screaming at her parent. It made the hair stand up on my and I'm a survivor. It like triggered me the way she was talking. I'm like, that's not how you talk to someone. She was telling her mother she didn't have time to show emotion. Remember, it was the clip where she was telling her mother that she did not have time to sit and cry for her baby. That to me was a big red flag of narcissism, because narcissists can't have emotions naturally. They kind of have to like pre-plan it, right? Like if we're gonna cry out of nowhere. I've cried in the middle of Walmart. I've cried like we cry. That's a
Mhm.
normal human emotion. You can't plan it. But the fact that she was telling her mother, "I don't have time to cry for this baby," I was like, wait, what? You have to schedule. You have to schedule your emotions.
Mhm.
You had time to go do what t-shirt contests,
Yes,
to go get tattoos done, but you didn't have time to mourn your child. That's like, I don't, how could they, she looked up how they determine that the child was killed with duct tape and chloroform, and they went on
yes.
her computer
Yeah,
and
the chloroform was in the trunk. They got residue of that in the trunk. And there was evidence of somebody looking up about chloroform and um, unaliving somebody by breaking their neck and things like that.
Mhm.
But the duct tape is a big thing to me. The body was so decomposed they couldn't
didn't
really.
you find it near the house?
Yeah, like
About
4
15
blocks
miles.
away. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And the duct tape was found at the residence. The blanket that was with her was found in the residence. I mean, there was just there was just too much.
And
There
there
was
was
just
a little heart sticker put over the duct tape right where her mouth was. And it's obvious, like, she made up the nanny. She made up that she was going to school. She made up she had a job. I mean, it was lie after lie after lie. And which all of that she got convicted for on that end. I mean, she went to the extent of taking the police asked her to take her to the nannies, and she took them to an apartment complex, pointed out the apartment complex. Um, the police knocked on it and then went to the office, and the office people told them, well, there's been nobody living in that one for 5 months. And only then would she give up that she was lying about the nanny. And so it's a constant pattern, absolutely constant pattern with her.
it
And no
is. And to me,
no
sorry,
remorse.
Tara.
No, you're fine, go ahead.
No, it's just odd to me because even in the notes before this was even reported, she asked a neighbor to borrow a shovel to dig up bamboo roots in the back of her yard. Like that's just everything she was doing is like classic book of what they teach you to look for when there's a hump. Like look, check receipts. Do they have the weapons? Like talk to people. I mean, she was just checking the boxes off perfectly. Um, and it's insane to me because she came back on TikTok now,
Yeah.
as you said, Tara, claiming that she's a survivor advocate. But my thing is if I was acquitted of something that I truly did not do, I would want to move on with my life quietly, remembering my child. I would not be popping back up onto the internet, turning my comments off because she turned her comments off because she knew this was going to cause a stir and made a presence again. And then, when it didn't go the way she wanted, she reacted.
Mhm.
This isn't all healthy, sound minded behavior. So it's really not helping anything that she's trying to
Right.
accomplish.
Absolutely. So what do we have in the comments, Amanda?
Audrey said, "How did her stories not raise red flags and appalling?" That is the truth, though. How was she able to be acquitted from this? And she was lying the whole time, and there was just so much connect the dots,
Yeah.
like perfect. I think that's why we say it's so close to the O.J. Simpson case of the female spectrum of it. because it was just too much to and then when she was found not guilty, everybody was like, "Oh my goodness. How was this not going another way?" Jim just came in and said all of the characteristics of criminally insane.
Oh my, yeah, absolutely. And well, I'd love to hear from our audience what they think about with the dad, whether or not they feel like the parents were at all involved in this, because that's essentially how she got off. Was her defense was that she had fallen asleep, the baby somehow got into the pool and drowned, and her father found her there, and that her father took away the body and handled it. And for me, in my opinion, no way an ex-cop, an accidental drowning like that is an easy call. People panic, they try to revive the child every time. Every time. I can't imagine a baby falling in a pool and you don't try to revive them at all. So, I mean, and the parents took lie detectors from extremely reputable people, and it wasn't just one eye on them, it was several. And all of them gave the opinion the parents weren't lying, they knew nothing. But yet she put out a whole thing of that her father molested her and possibly Kaylee, and that her father took responsibility of the baby's body and that baby's death was an accident. So,
But
I,
even if that happened, she didn't report it for she didn't report it?
she didn't report it, and she
Exactly. So
on
like
a spree for looking for Zanny the nanny.
it literally
Well, and again, on her claims,
sense.
her claims was that she was so brainwashed by her father that she believed anything he told her.
What do you think of
That
Mia?
might be-
Mia's like, I see the computer going on. Mia's like, what?
That is her claims, is that her father told her to not worry about anything. Everything would be fine. Just give it that time.
Like, that's like when I think of brainwashing, I think of the Ruby Franke case. Like,
Yeah, which we'll
like
talk about later. Yeah.
so I'm
Yeah,
like my
absolutely.
mind is relating it to that. But like even if she was that brainwashed, you would still mourn the death of your child. I don't like there's it just makes no sense. Like how many years ago was this case?
2011 was when
It,
the case was. 28 was
yeah,
2008. Was when
2008 was when it happened. Yeah. Yep.
That's,
Yeah, and I mean, again, I watched the documentary where they even were interviewing her defense attorneys and the people that were rallying around her, and they were saying that everybody shows grief differently, and I was like, I completely get that, but you don't disregard emotion altogether and do things that bizarrely. That's just, again, me, I lost my lizard to like a couple weeks ago and wouldn't even like go to bed or eat until I found that lizard, and it's not even my child. So how could you discard something that fast? That is your own flesh and blood, your baby. Like,
it
it's
literally
just
makes
not even
absolutely no sense.
mother. Like, as a mother, I just don't feel that's natural.
Mhm.
You just have that instinct. Tara can tell you all about that instinct as a mother.
That's what I was supposed to say. My daughter was 20, and I grieved more than this girl. I can't even. Tears me apart all the time to see. Every time I see her, and I was livid then, and that was before events happened with Ashley. I was livid when it happened because it just felt like such an injustice. There was so much drama, and nobody was focusing on poor little Kaylee. Let's see. Jim says, no way the parents were involved. This girl was a nuclear bomb waiting to explode, and she didn't care who she hurt, even her parents, even her brother, because didn't she, in the end, try to claim her brother did things with her that were inappropriate
Yes.
as well?
Said it wasn't to the extent of her father's molestation, but she said he did start coming into her room after a certain point.
Yeah.
That was her allegations.
Well, and the biggest bombshells, she had people in the jail cell who were there with her who testified against her. That was another aspect of it, because she admitted
Oh,
to
I
them,
do remember.
she admitted to them knocking that baby out and chloroforming that baby. So Audrey says it's another story that brings shame to the justice system. Absolutely, because I still cannot understand how there was any kind of, they felt like there was a, well, actually, I think there was a comment that they believed she did it, but they felt like they didn't have concrete proof that she did. So that case was something else. Absolutely. But do you have any other thoughts on this case or about her as far as her rebranding herself?
I mean, we don't, I personally, as a survivor, don't believe she's telling the truth of being a survivor herself. By personally watching certain documentaries and interviews with her, it's really kind of offensive because it seems so played out, so dramatic, so acted, not real. As survivors, we all can tell when someone's struggling with their emotions. It's not as can be as dramatic as others can be, but hers is just man on key, and it's a horrible thing to do to people who have actually lived this. And again, for the disjustice of a 2-year-old little girl that didn't even get to live her life, I felt there was so much more empathy and compassion around her than it was for that baby.
No, absolutely.
And that was the hardest thing to watch.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Mia, you have any final thoughts about Casey's advocacy?
I just wonder, like, if she's gonna turn everything around and act like she's this huge advocate, is she gonna talk about what happened with her daughter? Like, there's no way you can just avoid that. Like, if you're gonna talk about survivors, are we gonna talk about how your daughter, what happened with your daughter? Because she wasn't a survivor, but she's a victim. So if you're gonna advocate for people, are you gonna advocate for her? Are you gonna talk about anything that happened with her? Because there's no way. You can't just leave that out.
Mm-hmm.
It's like it's like making a mockery of actual victims, and it's just not fair. Like, people like that don't deserve a platform.
No, and that's why they're so hairy eyeballed over there at TikTok. They're like, get off this platform, you know. Absolutely. Here at Break the Silence as president, our official stance is we're advocating for survivors, and everybody has a story, but officially, and in my own opinion, as a mother who has lost both a daughter and a granddaughter to domestic violence, I know firsthand the unimaginable pain of losing a child in a horrific way. And the Casey Anthony case is one of the greatest injustices, uh, you know, that we have in recent history. A 2-year-old child, she was disregarded like she was nothing. And the person who should have fought for her and protected her and sought justice for her, I'm sorry, in the name of her instead lied. She manipulated people, and she walked away free. And I tell you what, for 13 years, I have grieved for my daughter and my granddaughter. I've carried the weight of their loss every single day. And for 30 years, as a survivor of domestic violence, I have witnessed true survivors like the ladies who are here talking to me, women who have suffered immense abuse, but who have fought to heal and to protect their children. And most of all, to break the cycle of violence. And I will say this, Casey Anthony is not that. Survivors do not go out partying while their children are missing. Survivors do not spin stories and change narratives to suit their own little imagination. Survivors don't use their children's death as a platform to gain sympathy. So now Casey Anthony wants to rebrand herself as an advocate, claiming to be a survivor of abuse. But real survivors just don't behave that way. Between her jailhouse confessions, her internet searches, her endless lies, they all tell a very different story than the one she's trying to sell the public. So here at Break the Silence Against Domestic Violence, we stand for truth and justice and accountability, and we amplify the voices of true victims and survivors, and we fight for those who have been silenced. And Kaylee Anthony never had a voice in that courtroom, and her memory deserves more than the exploitation that is continued to be out there, and her name has to endure. So this case is not just a legal failure, it was a moral failure. And as an advocate and survivor and a grieving mother, I will continue to stand against those who are exploited by their identity, the real victims that have their identity only used for gain, like Kaylee's. And justice for Kaylee was denied in that courtroom, in my opinion, but the public is not going to forget. None of us will ever forget little Kaylee. So that's our stance here at Break the Silence. So we're going to take a short break real quick, and then we're going to come back and talk about the debate over Oklahoma's stalking warning letter.
We hope you're enjoying this episode of Through the Eyes of Survivors. We wanted to pause for a moment and let you know that Through the Eyes of Survivors has a shop now open. And this is a great way for you to not only help survivors of domestic violence, but also let everyone know that you will not be silent about this important cause. From t-shirts to bags to coffee mugs, we have so much to choose from. To grab your swag, head to our store at breakthesilencedv.org. That's store.breakthesilencedv.org. We can't say enough about how much we appreciate all that the community does to help support us and this organization. So we hope you've enjoyed this episode and continue to subscribe to future episodes. Thank you. We hope you're enjoying this episode of Through the Eyes of Survivors. We wanted to pause for a moment and let you know that Through the Eyes of Survivors has a shop.
And we're back. It took a second, but we're back. All right. So we're on to our next topic, which is another one. Anything that pertains to Oklahoma always gets to me because that's where Ashley's case happened, is in Oklahoma, even though we live in Texas. But so Oklahoma, with their Oklahoma Homicide Prevention Act, has introduced in 2022 a law that helps strengthen protections for stalking victims. It elevated stalking from a misdemeanor to a felony, which that's great. And it required though, that the accused stalkers, receive a warning letter informing them that their future actions would result in a felony charge. Now there's a fight whether or not to repeal the warning letter requirement. Critics argue that it puts victims in danger and helps stalkers evade prosecution, while supporters say it gives prosecutors the evidence they need to convict stalkers, which is a crime that is notoriously difficult to prove in court, right? So, what I would like to our listeners to hear is like a scenario, how this really plays out, like real life. So imagine a woman named Sarah. She's been dealing with a stalker ex-boyfriend, Jason. Okay, he shows up outside her house and sends a dozen texts and leaves gifts on her doorstep. And even though Sarah has told him to stop, he just keeps on. So she files a police report under the current law, and the police serve Jason with a formal warning letter. And they capture this all on footage through their body cams. Okay. Jason now knows that the next step is a felony charge. The next step. So he stops for a few weeks, but instead of quitting, Jason gets sneakier. He creates fake social media accounts, uses new phone numbers, has a friend check on Sarah for him. When Sarah tries to file charges again, Jason's defense attorney argues that since she didn't report anything immediately after receiving the letter, maybe she's exaggerating. This scenario kind of shows both ends of the argument, right? There's a warning letter that lets Jason know he's being watched, which could deter him. It also gives him a chance to change his tactics and make it harder to prosecute. And Jason wouldn't receive the letter under the new SB 8113. Police could just build a case around him in secret and charge him directly when they have enough evidence. But under HB 1002, the letter would still be used. And Sarah's choice not to serve it could be used against her in court. So, ladies, what are your thoughts or feelings on that? Because advocates are definitely choosing sides here in Oklahoma over that.
Oh, there's a lot with that. I feel in some way it could be really kind of harmful. It really kind of, I see both ways, but to me, again, like the fact that he was given notice and he was given all like these ways to basically change it up so there was no way that she could prove even a paper trail, right? And that's what we talk about all the time as survivors when we're talking to victims. We're saying paper trail, paper trail, paper trail. And they're like, hey, heads up, you might want to be a little bit better with what you're doing, because if you don't, this is what we're going to do. And that's kind of what looked like happened here. And that to me is really, really concerning for some survivors. And I know myself, there was things just like with PFAs. Sometimes it could be great and sometimes it was very harmful. It all depends on the situation as well.
Yeah, I can see that. Part of what question went through my mind immediately is, if he stalked her, he's already committed a crime. Why are you giving him a warning? Arrest us behind. Why are we giving him a warning?
I mean, he just got sneakier over time, as we saw. Like, he found different ways to go around it, because that's what criminals do. They'll find ways around. And that's yeah.
We're giving them a warning. Why? They've committed a crime already. I can't even fathom. But okay, I do see where this helps make things more, applicable for the prosecutor. Wonderful. But so many times victims don't report. They don't want to be involved. Even if they do report, you're making them definitely afraid that this is going to escalate.
Yes.
If you know that partner who has abused you, you know when the escalation is going to take effect, and that this particular thing can make them escalate and make you more at danger.
Yes. Yes.
And I don't feel they're quite taking that into account here. So,
No.
Mia, what are your thoughts?
My, like, it just, like, doesn't make any sense to me because, like, why would you warn the abuser that, hey, I know what you're doing, and everyone sees what you're doing. So I'm just letting you know, if you do it again, you're gonna get in trouble. Like, they don't deserve that warning. In my thoughts, like, I always think of the worst case scenario, and, like, I feel like there'd be cases, like, the stalker already knows that if they get caught again, it's a felony, it's not just a misdemeanor. So what if they do something worse because they already know they're gonna get in trouble? So if I'm gonna get in trouble, I might as well do, like, the worst thing possible, is what I feel
Absolutely.
like people might do. And that was just playing in my head. That's what I was, like, that's what I was thinking about, because I always think about the worst things that could happen out of, like, this my survivor tactics, and it's just, like, I don't understand why. Like, you could tell that whoever made this, like, had an idea going to try to make it safer, but at the end of the day, with laws that are gonna benefit survivors, you need survivors writing it, because they know how to, like, what actually goes through your mind when you're those things. You know how your abuser thinks, and so you could take these things into thought. It's very obvious that some of
Absolutely.
these laws are not written by survivors, and they can put people in danger because, and some people just don't know. It's just like myopia. Some people really don't know what they don't know. And
Mhm.
so it's just, at least it's like ignorance rather than they're purposely trying to make it, like, difficult. But they definitely, like, there needs to be discussion with actual survivors, because those are the people that are going to be benefited from this.
Yes, and that's one of the points that I had read about with this law, was that, which the Domestic Violence Fatality Review Board that Oklahoma has, which personally I have spoke before that review board, because they brought me in to talk about Ashley's case and the failures that happened during her case that caused her fatality. Now, they track all of those homicides, and they were in a position that uh, they don't totally agree with this. So, if they're not taking it, the legislature's not taking into account voices from the Fatality Review Board, to me, that's a clear indication that you're not working within your own system to get good advice. So,
Nope.
Yeah, some things sound good in theory, but don't always play out correctly. And we see it, like, with the Gabby Petito case, how the cops were there and, like, people tried to do right, but it's really easy to mix it up when you don't actually know and have the resources that you need to do things correctly. They get done incorrectly, and it could take lives away. And this is another thing that could potentially take lives away.
Absolutely.
yeah, so let's see here. Let's see what Jim said here. He said a lot. This has to be repealed. These ladies are in enough danger without giving the abuser a heads up on what's happening, even though he took the actions that caused this. No written warning is needed. He knows he's in the wrong and committing a crime. I have to agree. Definitely. And like I said, we'd love to hear from y'all, anyone watching. Should stalkers get a warning when they're facing felony charges? I mean, where does that end? Do we give warnings for people who commit theft? Because some thefts are a misdemeanor. So do we give them that kind of warning? I mean, where does that end? You know what I mean? Seems kind of like a slippery slope to me. Do you think warning letters help or hurt victims out there? Give us your opinion. Yeah, I just don't see. There was so much stalking in my daughter's case that a warning letter wouldn't have stopped Josh from doing a thing at all. He just would have kept on and kept on. And here's the big thing: they couldn't serve him with the warrants. How do you serve them with a warning letter when they know the police are coming looking for them? What happens then? That's my question, because my daughter couldn't even get a protective order more than an emergency one that lasted 20 days because they couldn't serve him. So what if they can't serve him this warning letter? Then what? Then what are they going to do? That's my question, because that's seen way too many times. They already know they're in trouble. They already know they're wrong. They're already hiding and evading. So a warning letter kind of, and then it be able to be used against you in court.
Yeah,
I
the important thing about the paper trail is that your abuser doesn't know that you're gathering all this information. If your abuser knew that you had all this information, most likely he would just kill you. So to have the person who's stalking you know that they know that people know this is a record, you're just putting someone in a more dangerous position.
100%. 100%.
And if the stalkers know that this will be used against the survivor too, they're going to find ways to manipulate it. It's already hard for survivors to get justice. It's already easy for survivors to get things flipped on them with reactive abuse and things like that. We're just adding another thing that could be a barrier rather than a help for them.
Yeah. Absolutely. Audrey says, there we go. They are masters at getting away with things. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I think that's pretty good for this one. Why don't we take another quick break, and then we'll be back to talk about our last segment, talk about the Ruby Franke case and how that documentary is now being out in the public since it's been released, and giving new insight to that case. So stay tuned.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of Through the Eyes of Survivors. My name is Tara Woodley, and I am the president of Break the Silence Against Domestic Violence, an organization that gives survivors and their families, and the families that have lost loved ones to domestic violence, access to a community that understands the journey that they're facing. We hope this episode impacts you, and hopefully you want to learn more about the topic. If it is helping you in some way, let us know in the comments below. We love your feedback. Also, make sure to click the subscribe button below and the bell right next to it so that you can get notified the next time an episode premieres. We hope you will see us in the next episode, and thank you. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of Through the Eyes of Survivors.
All right. I think we're back. We're back. So, Amanda, I'm going to let you take point on this next case to kind of, anybody who doesn't know what's happening in this case, give them a little bit of a background.
Absolutely. So today we're going to be talking about Ruby Franke and the new documentary on Hulu that kind of revealed some more of what was going on. So for those who don't know, Ruby Franke built a massive following on social media on YouTube with a YouTube channel called Eight Passengers that featured her 6 children on camera, and they talked about discipline and parenting and all that good stuff. And she really did like have a really big following for a very long time. I mean, she was very, very well known. And there was a time where YouTube was very popular for having family bloggers. I remember I used to watch a lot of family bloggers. It was just, neat to see how other people lived. And Ruby Franke definitely built a good community with that of doing that. But behind the scenes, there was some extreme discipline methods going on. And come to find out, they were harming the children. Ruby Franke had a friend come into the family who was kind of a counselor, spiritual and life guidance for her son that they were struggling with disciplining at the time. And when this woman came into the household, everything changed. Um, there was a lot of things that these children went through that no one knew that was going on. And I want to say about a good time later, there was a 911 call where one of the boys was able to break free from the home because he was
Yeah,
got
he went to a neighbor's.
Russell.
yes,
Oh, I forgot. People
yes,
are no longer using their names because they're minors. But
Mhm.
yes,
his son broke free and went to a neighbor's house, and he was emaciated, and his wrists and ankles were covered in sores. And
yes.
it was it. I'm so sorry. You can continue.
No,
No,
you
you're
watched
perfectly
that.
fine. You're fine.
Um,
No, you're
I
fine. See, I'm
saw
just so
that
hit.
footage actually, and I was horrified. The footage, like from
Horrified.
the camera of the neighbors and that boy.
in the
Yeah,
2020 documentary, they actually showed like the wounds, and it was
it's
horrible.
horrendous.
But you could
It's
tell,
horrendous.
yeah, you could tell how horrible it was based on the guy who made the 911 call was like crying. He was
Mhm.
like, "Y'all have to get out here. This boy has been hurt." And they went to Jody Hildebrandt was the friend who was the therapist and all, and people think that she was also Ruby Franke's lover. Jody Hildebrandt, they went to her house, and because they knew that there was another child there. So they went looking. They didn't know if they were going to find the youngest daughter alive. They found her, but they thought she was so skinny that they thought she was a little boy. They also shaved her head. And in like this new documentary, it has the oldest siblings, Chad and Sherry. They also have their story, and um, her husband Kevin, which has been controversial because a lot of people think that there's no way Kevin didn't know, and that there's no way that he didn't play into it. But I feel like the
Yeah,
documentary showed how brainwashed it's like the oldest son and the husband were. Like it
mhm.
was crazy because I definitely thought that the husband was also in on it until I saw those like clips of him in like the prayer group meetings where he would just be getting bashed by Jody, and it's like it was like he was used to it. And the clip where he was like, "What are you talking about?" when the police were interviewing him and telling him all these things that had been happening, it looked like he was like it looked like he wasn't even there. Like he wasn't keeping any of this information, like it was just bouncing off of him. And it really
Right.
yeah, like it I've never seen someone look so manipulated, but he really
Yeah.
did. look like this was an entire new world that they were talking about.
And to give content, at this time, he was not living with them. He hasn't seen or spoken to his children in a year. Like, they kicked him out of the house. Like, Jody
I thought they went
and
to Jody's house.
they had two different households. Two
Okay.
different households. They had one where it was her and her husband's, and they kind of made him leave and said, you have to get better with yourself and do all these things before you can come back. And at this time, he left and was trying to get back. And he admitted in this documentary that he was fully more concerned about his wife and his marriage than he was for his children. Like, he was just much, and to me, that is kind of a victim mentality. That is an abuse mentality, because they kind of hold a string over you where it's like, you want this back? You know what I mean? And so you start fighting for things and pushing other things aside because of that reaction. And he did admit that. He did. Nope. We got a good comment from Jim. I'm going to go ahead and share that.
Okay.
When religion is weaponized by parents, evil takes control. No matter what religion it is, no excuse for abuse of a child's spouse or anything else. Using religion to do things is beyond unforgivable.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true.
I agree with that so much, especially oh, they showed like pictures of Ruby Franke's diary, and this helped like incriminate her because she was writing down every single thing.
Mhm.
She called her child, the youngest son, a demon, and
Yeah.
was saying that I won't stop like beating you. I'll be on you until the day that you die. While she was like, it's like she was actually convinced that her children were possessed too, which
Mhm.
is mind-boggling to me. When she
Mm-hmm.
It's so obvious that this like her this YouTube channel just fed her greed. Like, it's like her family wasn't even her family anymore. They were just employees and whatever. Like, it's like she was really convinced that what she was doing was for God, and anything and everyone who got in any kind of way was just a demon trying to take her away from her purpose. But to
Mhm.
the point, I just don't know how it could get that far for someone, to the point that you see children and you're like, "Oh no, you're taking away my purpose. You're getting beat." To the point where they were rubbing cayenne pepper and honey on the children's wounds after being tied up, making your children jump in 110-degree heat for hours. Like, if anyone's possessed, it's definitely Ruby. There's no way someone with human emotions could do that to these small children. And the fact she manipulated it so well, she manipulated her children so well, to the point they, like, the oldest son was completely manipulated too, where he was like confessing these things because he thought he was doing so wrong. To like, he put his mom, I feel so horrible for them because he put his mom and Jody on such a pedestal. And so
Mhm.
to see that what happened with his youngest siblings, and I can't imagine. It's really hard when you learn, because my dad's an abuser. It's really hard when you learn that your parent isn't a good person.
Mhm.
And I can't imagine seeing this kind of this the abuse to this extent.
Mhm. No, there's a certain mindset that goes along with it that not only was what she had such a religious fervor of, this is the way from her religion because they were Mormon. She had somebody egging her on with that, and some of this, I have to admit, it really, I was telling Amanda before we got on here, kind of made me very upset because I grew up in a very religious family. They were Jehovah's Witnesses, and my mother um, did some things that were undeniably wrong, but they were egged on by another woman within their religion who she she declared that she was one of their chosen to go to heaven, and so everything that she did or said, my mother took it with 100% purity of, well, this is what I've got to do in order to make my children behave and make my children do right and get them right with God. I mean, things like, you know, when I was young, the movie E.T., E.T. the Extraterrestrial came out, and my youngest brother, who was 2, had an E.T. doll and a ball and a storybook and everything, and um, by the time he was like 4 or something, this woman came over to my mother's house and went, "That's of the devil. We need to put a Bible and a watchtower over it and pray over it, and we need to get it out and get the demons out of your house and get the demons out of your children." And,
Oh.
he thought, literally, because it came from the word of this religious figure who had so much, understanding, so godly, so close to God, she was one of the chosen to go into heaven, that her word was all there was. And I see that there was a lot of that going on in here, but they took it even to a newer level. The amount of punishment that those poor children endured, I can't even, to be starved, it's just so horrific. Just absolutely so horrific. And yeah, so I don't understand. I can't even tell you now. I can't understand to this day how my mother was that kind of manipulated during that time period. But people do get manipulated in these ways by people, and so it's kind of, with this case though, it's like, well, it's similar to like my daughter's case. You have two very evil people coming together, and it makes like this perfect storm.
Mm-hmm.
That egg each other on.
And I agree. I think that Jody fed Ruby's evil. I really do. I think she gave her what she wanted to validate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very sad. So the new documentary has come out on that, right? So
Yes.
I think that's why everybody's kind of talking about it, because it's put more footage out there than what people thought they could see. I mean, like, part of what I saw that I hadn't seen today was the vlogs, the raw footage of the vlogs that she was doing, where she was getting her kids and going, "You need to pretend to be happy to help me with this."
Yes.
I was like, whoa.
Like getting mad and like, well, then pretend to be happy. I was like, what? I don't think I've ever told my child to force the emotion. I was like, yes. And you can even see the difference of the children's relationships now, because the older son still calls them mom and dad, but the daughter calls them Ruby and Kevin. So you can definitely...
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. No, I was just saying you could definitely see the difference of the family dynamic and how people handled. As Mia said, the son was very much still wanting to please his mother for a very long time, and Jody. Like, he idolized both of them. So it was interesting to see the different dynamics of the family members in that documentary and how they were all affected and how they reacted differently.
Right. And then, is that the son in particular that she accused of molesting other children and neighborhood children and all of that? Or was that a different son?
No, I believe that's the son, because he is the oldest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They all ended up being divided up within CPS, and he can't be around any other kids because of her accusations, whether they're true or not. Just because she's spiteful, but there's
he
no
went off. They sent him off to camp. I mean, he did a lot of things. Like they did so much. Like, and it was to the point where it wasn't even was caused by them. It was a home thing that was causing him to act out. It wasn't something that was beyond them.
To me, it felt like she did all that to punish that boy.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Because I feel like he was the son who kind of worked against her, didn't like follow like the sheep, like didn't kind of veered away. We all have that child, and you gotta love them a little bit harder and more patiently. But she couldn't. He was ruining her plans.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing out there for us to consider in this particular case is there she was giving advice to parents on discipline. And she was very popular with her tough love message.
Yep.
So there's a good question on that. How should the public perceive all that? When do we draw a line, right?
I feel that if you feel there's a red flag in your head the moment they say it, then it's not right. I feel that we sometimes watch people and we really want to believe and think that what they're saying is good. But with the Ruby Franke, her giving disciplining advice and then seeing the fall of this, sometimes I say it's best to know your children and yourself, and sometimes getting parenting advice from other people is not, especially online, is not the best.
Yeah, there's a fine line between tough love and abuse. And she definitely crossed it. She definitely tried to walk across, along it, but she did not. Like, when her youngest, it was one of her daughters, I believe, forgot to pack her lunch, and I think she was in kindergarten, and she said, well, you're just not going to eat today. If you don't have the responsibility to pack your lunch, you're not going to eat. And
that's what they used to do to my generation as kids. I'll tell you that. I heard that before. And it wasn't uncommon back then, but it's not common now. No.
It's not common. No. But there was a video where it showed a small child with a baby doll, and she's like, something, she was disciplining her, she lied or something, and she said if she didn't do something, she was going to cut the baby's head off.
Yeah.
The baby
keep cutting things in my
hand. This is the top.
Your doll, I'm going to cut its head off.
Yeah, that is crazy.
Yes.
So do you think she was trying to use her social media to normalize her behavior?
I don't think she thought there was anything wrong with her behavior. I think she was trying to gain a social media to gain power. Honestly.
She was trying to gain for sure. And Kevin definitely dug deep in that when he was talking about how there's a lot of family vloggers in Utah because they think, when you're, I don't know much about being Mormon, but they said that a goal is trying to gain influence.
Yes.
But from what I've seen, a lot of these Mormon family vloggers don't have the best influence. It seems that abuse might be a little thing that's in common. And I'm not a tough love person. That's especially since I've endured some abuse. My mindset is I want to be a very gentle parent. I don't ever want to teach my child that someone that loves you is going to hurt you.
Right.
Because that just sets us up for failure. Love really shouldn't hurt. Love is enduring. Loving is kind. And I feel like that's something that needs to be focused on more. And I just think family vlogging is horrible. I don't think you should be able to record and post your children that can't consent to these. Your child you shouldn't be recording your child that was grounded for 7 months for pulling a prank on your child and taking away their bread.
The door when she took away her son, the oldest. He played a prank on his brother where he told him, hey, we're getting up, we're going to Disney World. And it was a little mean. The boy didn't get up, get excited, packed his clothes. but they took his door. Like they took his door and his bed. Right? It was
They took his bed
everything.
away for
was-
7 months.
Yeah, 7 months.
Slept
Like
on a
everything
beanbag.
was gone. Yep.
Wow.
Like it was extreme punishment. Again, I would be upset too as a mother. I'd be like, that wasn't nice, but like you lost Xbox for a day. You're not riding your bike. Like, yeah, like simple, not like jail, immediate jail at home.
Yeah, I don't think most people's go-to response is probably not, "Oh, you're gonna sleep on a beanbag for 7 months because she knows very well that she wanted to use that for content, but now
Yeah.
she's all of a sudden, since her son did it, it's a huge problem." Like, it's
He said it during a lot when they were alive, wasn't it, Mia? He said something. I just got my bed back, and she went,
I don't
I
think
don't
our
think
viewers knew that.
our viewers knew
Yeah.
that. Yeah, and she laughed. You did it perfectly. Like she said, I don't think our viewers knew that.
I think the world would be a better place without family vlogging. No one needs to especially with social media being such a big thing, and like, don't post your children. Like, if you have a huge page, I don't think it's very safe for your children. There's a lot of weirdos out there, and if we want to protect our kids from what they don't know to protect them against yet. So I think it's okay to shelter your kids from some of the things that are out there until they're at an age where they could actually protect themselves. These kids, Ruby Franke's kids, they're like, it's going to be so hard for them to recover from that. It's going to affect all the relationships in the future because of how abusive their first one. These are relationships that are pillars in our lives. So when we learn abuse and we learn that love can hurt, when we go out into the world and we endure some abuse, we think it's okay because this is something that we endured. And that's not okay. This is why we have so many problems. Their domestic violence rates are so high because we see them, it's normalized, and at some point you just got to cut it off. And I love that at the end of her channel, people started acknowledging, hey, this isn't okay, this is crazy, what's she on?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That people need to be
people
called out. Just like Casey Anthony, she had to turn her comments off for a reason. Nobody wants to see her. Nobody wants to see Ruby Franke. Like, these people, take their platforms away. There's so many other people that could have these platforms and encourage good behavior. So, yeah, that's my opinion.
Yeah, I agree.
Absolutely. So what comments do we got as we wrap up here, Amanda?
We have one from Janie, and she said, I shared my story through Messenger. Amazing. You can go ahead. We have on our website a place where you can also share your story. Janie, it's our survivor stories. And you can share for there as well. Jim said, let's see what Jim said. Even punishment. Oh, I'm so sorry. My computer took that away. What I was trying to show it. It said, even punishment for a child must be done out of love and care for the child. I always have said myself that when you're punished, when you're correcting a child, you should be doing it out of care, not out of anger. So I agree.
Yeah, Audrey
said yes, they do not deserve a platform.
Yeah.
They don't. Nope. And then Jim said, this is why community people who understand is so beneficial to those who face abuse. And I agree.
Yes, absolutely. Well, all right. So this was a good conversation. Thank you so much, ladies, for being here and having it with us. Thank everybody who's joined in and put in comments. So that wraps up this episode of Through the Eyes of Survivors Uncensored. We've tackled some heavy topics, but of course, these conversations are crucial. So we can only push for real change by exposing the truth. But before we go, we do have a few important updates with BTS. Join us for our BTS ADV virtual town hall this Sunday, March 16th at 4:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. This is your chance to meet the board of directors and staff and ask questions, learn more about how BTS ADV is fighting for survivors and how your voice matters. We want to hear from you, so find out how you can get involved, through volunteering, advocacy, donations. We have a Facebook event page for that, which somebody will link into the comments, I'm sure. Just look for that on our normal BTS ADV page. There should be an event link, and look up that event, and we'll see you for that. Also, don't miss our special podcast episode that we are having this Monday at 5 p.m. Central Standard Time. It's basically celebrating St. Patrick's Day and the International Parental Mental Health Awareness Week. So the topic is we're sitting down with Bridie Heidel, and she's an award-winning teacher, TEDx speaker, and author of the book Bright Eyes. It's a real powerful memoir of growing up with abuse and a narcissistic mother. We'll dive into what it's like for children of abuse survivors who take the role of protector and explore ways to break the cycle of that kind of trauma. So be sure to watch for that on Monday. And then next Wednesday, Amanda, who do we have on?
Next Wednesday, let me go ahead and double check here, but I believe we've had so many good people coming on that I have to check my list because we have so many people coming forward. Oh no, Tara, I'm not able to access it right now. I'm so sorry,
but yeah, check on Monday and then see us next Wednesday for sure. Same time here.
Yes.
So follow us across all our social media platforms: Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. Stay updated on those upcoming events and our advocacy efforts, and also survivor stories. And if you have a great story that you want to tell, check out our website, www.breakthesilencedv.org. You can submit your story there. And together we're breaking the silence, raising awareness, fighting for justice. Thank you for tuning in. Until next time, stay safe, stay strong, and never stop using that voice. Let her rip. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.